Good morning and welcome to Repro Law Roundup for August. My name is Stephanie Caballero. If you have any questions, as always, you can let me know. Happy to be here. If you want me to answer anything, see anything that you'd like me to talk about, just let me know. You can find me on all the socials, but let's get right to it. Oh my gosh. Birthright citizenship round two. As somebody just said, the administration threw a temper tantrum, and this is what the new executive orders are. And I have to say, I agree with that person. A new executive order was issued on August 6th, which was just last weekend. It included surrogacy. So if you are not a U.S. citizen and you are coming to the United States for surrogacy, compensated surrogacy in particular, then your child is not a U.S. citizen. And there was a very specific dialogue and language in the executive order that said that, the administrative paperwork cannot be issued. So that means like birth certificates and passports. To date, nothing like that has happened yet, but that was the biggest shock. I do believe that in the conservative side of our government, that they believe that birth tourism and surrogacy is one and the same thing, that these parents are coming here specifically to have a United States citizen, and that's not why they're coming here. They're coming here to have a family, to have a baby. It's safe. It's secure. There's great medical procedures, great IVF, great hospitals. The surrogates are screened. The surrogates, have a support system. There's great law. There's a framework. There's a contract. There's parentage orders. So that's why they come here. But I think that that side of the aisle has really equated birth tourism and surrogacy as one and the same thing. So that's what's happening now. However, last night or yesterday, a lawsuit, thank God, the same people that fought the birthright citizenship and won, we won in June, so yay. It was the same group who did Barbara v. Trump. That was the case that went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And the United States Supreme Court said that any child born in the United States is a citizen. There are some limitations. If you're a foreign type of a foreign dignitary, your children do not become United States citizens, because that type of dignitary, you are not subject to the laws thereof of the United States. So anyways, the same group that litigated that Supreme Court just issued in, was it June? It seems like so long ago, doesn't it? They filed the lawsuit, and they basically said, hello, dear federal court, we just did this. None of the issues have changed. Nothing has changed. So therefore, give us an injunction. We don't need to go to the Supreme Court. And I really don't think it should go to the Supreme Court. However, the Supreme Court does like to take up everything that Trump has. So we'll see if it's going to go to the Supreme Court. But for now, there is new litigation. So I just want to let you know that there is new litigation, and we'll see where it goes. But hopefully it'll be enjoined, meaning it'll be stopped. And then the Supreme Court will say, we already heard these issues, and, your baby's a citizen. I do have some clients, and we tell, so if you're an agency, you're listening, you're watching right now, tell your clients not to lie, why they're coming here. We never tell our clients to lie. So you need to be honest about why you're coming here. Your child is going to be a United States citizen. You do need to come and take care of your child. We also could do something like we did during COVID and get authorization from your country to leave the country if for some reason you can't get a passport or, a United States birth certificate. So we'll just keep you posted. But for right now, I don't believe anything has changed. It's too soon, it's too new, and there's already litigation against it. So hopefully it'll be enjoined. Oh, I tell you, we'll see. But the ruling of the court was definitive, so I don't know what to say at this point. It's a very interesting time to be here. But we got birthright citizenship. Anybody born here is a citizen. Your child will be a citizen. It's just we may have to do something like we did during COVID. You know, um, I have been able to help when parents can't come here. So if you need help and your child can't come here, I think I'll do a whole little webinar on that because that might be a concern for people coming here, and I definitely can help. You do need the proper documents for the person that's going to take care of your child, as well as the person that's going to take your child to you. So I'll keep you posted on that. Anyways, let's get to Florida. Again, conservative politicians, they are very concerned about birth tourism. So in Florida, Senator Rick Scott was able to prevent citizens from China, Iran, North Korea, but it was specifically aimed at China from doing surrogacy in Florida. So that has been shut down. However, he tried to do that with the whole United States. So he introduced that bill to the whole United States. And what happened there is that the Democrats said no. And so it's died in committee. It's not going forward. It's not moving forward. So in China, and I did read where a surrogate, she posted how sad she was. She couldn't move forward with her Chinese IPs. And let me tell you something. She is matched with them and it's a process. So she's been with them, she said, almost a year. They have bonded, they are close. She was going to help them have a family. And the match broke and she had to start over and she was in tears. So it's in Florida right now. It's not going to move forward into the rest of the United States. Again, birth tourism is something that was happening way before Trump's first term. Russians were going to Florida, and there were these companies that have since definitely very slowed down because our government got wind of it. There were companies that were paid a lot of money to bring the Russians to Florida so they could have US citizens. And there were Chinese, there were companies in China that were coming, and they had a house in LA. That got shut down years and years ago. I'm sure occasionally there's somebody coming here to give birth to a United States citizen, but the time, money, and effort spent for a surrogacy, you're having your own baby, and the United States, like I said, is a great place to come. Great medical care, great legal. The surrogates, great support system. We have an excellent framework. That's why people come here. So, birth tourism is separate, surrogacy separate. Yes, but considering what's been going on in the media, we're just going to have to keep trying to get that through to them anyway. So that's what's going on. So it got stopped. And then also in Florida, there is a case right now with a Chinese intended parent. Oh my gosh, poor guy. He had triplets. One of the triplets has since passed. I think when the triplet was 8 months old. I kind of want to know why, and nobody's saying. So the surrogate thought that the Chinese parent had stopped talking to her, and the Chinese parent, and I know the attorney who's representing the Chinese intended parent, oh, he's not intended anymore, he's a parent. He thought that why is the surrogate still talking to me? My babies are fine. They're with a nanny service. I have a nanny taking care of them because I'm trying to get a visa to come here and get my children. If only he had talked to me, I could have helped him. So, in the right way, the ethical way, but he got scammed. So the nanny service was showing him pictures and videos of his children, and they were fake. The children are now in California. They are well taken care of. I have spoken to the attorney involved, but the surrogate is trying to get to be a parent of these children. And of course, Rick Scott is involved, as is the attorney general, because he's also involved in another case. Again, he doesn't like surrogacy. He thinks it's birth tourism. So that's what's going on right now. So hopefully that case will be resolved. And sorry, my dog's barking. Hopefully that case will be resolved and the parent can be united with his children because that's really all he wants, right? So the children can't leave until the case is resolved. And it seems like the judge doesn't really understand the issues. Surrogacy is definitely a very small community, and it's not something she sees every day. So hopefully she'll get the right advice, is all I say. Fingers crossed on that. And like I said, that he gets reunited with his children, because that's what we want. Well, now we're in Texas, and there's two things happening in Texas right now. So, Texas had a hearing about surrogacy again. They are likening surrogacy to birth tourism, and they want to ban all international intended parents from coming to Texas to do their surrogacy. If you've heard me before, I love Texas. I love my Texas surrogates. They've been great. The court system has been great for the most part. There is one county not so great, but we get through it though. The judge is really just following the letter of the law, but the judge also equates surrogacy with birth tourism. So I wish we could have a little chat with her about that, but that's for another day. Anyways, in Texas, they had a hearing because they do want to ban all international intended parents from utilizing surrogacy in Texas. And they did have a surrogate talk about just a very horrific, well, not horrible, but a very awful situation that had happened to her. It was heartbreaking. It truly was. And, you'd have to be, I don't know, a rock not to feel her pain and her sorrow. But she's not from Texas. So if you're having a hearing about surrogacy, and what you want to do for your citizens in Texas, I think you should find a Texas surrogate. Because after that surrogate spoke, then what happened is they had the attorneys, the agencies, the physicians, the parents, the surrogates, the very real people that have helped families. Like my family, I had a surrogacy. I've helped people all over the world. Oh my gosh, little tiny babies, and now they're almost grown. Geez, Lou, it happens fast. Anyway, so that's what's happening in Texas. There's supposed to be another hearing in November, so I'll go if I'm needed in November, and then I think the final vote will be in January. So we'll see what's happened. Hopefully, between now and then, we can convince those in Texas as well as in Florida that that's not what's happening, right? It's not birth tourism. And then, of course, it's an election year. So, we're having elections in our country in November. And so anything that, can make the news, and, it's on Trump's radar. And if you're Republican, you want to say things that are on his radar because you want his backing. So Ken Paxton, who is up for reelection, has now brought a surrogate from Alaska into Texas so he can protect her, because she did not want to terminate, and she's a surrogate due to a health issue. It's a very severe health issue. So that's what's going on in Texas right now. So I'll keep you posted. I would say you can still work with Texas surrogates. You can still work in Texas. You just have to be careful about who you match your Texas surrogates with, is what I say. But I wouldn't stop working in Texas. If you want, give me a call and I can talk to you about Texas and what's going on there, right? So, but I would not stop working in Texas, right? And then now we are moving on to IVF in the military. This is a passion project of mine. I have had intended parents who have done surrogacy, who are military, because you can be injured. People don't think about it. I've been working on this. I think I watched Capitol Hill over 10 years ago. Senator Patty Murphy has been working on this and trying to get IVF coverage for military. Please, they serve our country. If they lost the ability to have a baby, they should be able to have a child, right? I know that Trump has touted that, helping people with IVF, and the Republicans rejected giving military benefits, military, veterans and people in the military benefits for IVF. So then other Democratic senators, including Patty Murray, as well as Tammy Dunkworth, who had her two children through IVF. So they're trying to make that happen. Even our representatives here in San Diego, we do have 3 military bases in San Diego. They have also said we support this bill. I mean, IVF is very expensive, especially in the United States. And these people want babies, and we want more babies. So let's help them have some babies, right? So We'll see. Let's keep the campaign promise and get more people to have IVF and have more babies if they need IVF, right? Because it's really, really, really a tough thing to go through for these people. Speaking of our government, have you been following AOC? AOC is an God, I just like said, what is her name again? Oh my gosh, yes, I know her name. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is freezing her eggs and she is going on Instagram and talking about her shots and doing her shots right on live on Instagram. So she's just filming herself and going, okay, so here's my Gonalef and here's my Minipore, and she's mixing it and she's got it in her cute little she's I think her $20, little I don't know where she got it, Walmart or wherever, her little, carrying bag. Some of the medication needs to be refrigerated, so she'll pull it out of the refrigerator. She did her shots right before she went live on, some morning program. So hats off to her because, family planning doesn't always start later. Sometimes it can start before. She's 36 years old. So, right, she doesn't really know what's going to happen in the future. So she wants to, freeze her eggs. So I think it's great. I think it's great what she's doing. I know when I did all my shots, there was nothing like this going on. I like to say it was the dark ages. So I love that she's really making it normalized and she's really trying to help those who have to make that choice, right? All right, moving on to sperm donors. Oh my gosh. You know, I tell you, people, if you need a contract, spend a contract. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, talked about the cost because she really looked at the cost. And she is going through the costs of egg freezing, how much it costs, the cost of the medication. I think when she looked at it with insurance, it was $7,000. And then she eventually did it without insurance, which was $3,000. Yes, doesn't that tell you something about our insurance companies that are publicly traded on the stock exchange? Yeah, that does tell you something about it. They charge more money when you have insurance. So its average cost is $5,000. It always has been $5,000. Anyways, this sperm donor became a dad because they didn't have a written contract. So I would say spend the money and get a written contract. The court did recognize that there was an oral agreement for him to be a sperm donor, but there was no written contract. So what they did is they said your children didn't sign away their rights for a parent, and they balanced the welfare of the children. And so he is going to be financially responsible and he probably has to pay back pay. And that was not his intent. And that was not the mother's intent. We call her the recipient before she has a child. That wasn't the intent. The children are now 5 years old. But Pennsylvania has the Uniform Parentage Act. And before a sperm donor, if you want to be considered a sperm donor, you have to have a written preconception agreement. That's what they call it, but a written contract, right? If they had a written contract, he would not be a dad today. So talk to an attorney, whether you're doing surrogacy, egg donation, embryo donation, an attorney who is in this field that understands this field, right? All right. Moving to Oregon. Oh my gosh, California just gave insurance for people who work for large companies. Sorry if you don't, but yay, right? Because it's a great thing. More people can do IVF. Oregon is trying to do the right thing, the state of Oregon. If you're not from this country, we don't have a lot of, I mean, we do have federal legislation, but a lot of it is done by the states, right? Like I'm in California. I'm, licensed in Washington, there's Texas, Illinois, right? So each state has their own like surrogacy law, each state has their own insurance mandates, right? It can be kind of confusing. You have to look at states as sometimes their own little nation in some ways. Look at California. I think we're like fourth in the world if you look at us. Man, we could be our own country. Wouldn't that be fun? That's another day. Anyways, so what they want to do is they're calling it the Right to IVF Act. So, yeah, they want to mandate insurance coverage. So, hopefully that passes. That would be fabulous if it does. I would love that for sure. So, we'll keep an eye on that for Oregon. That would be great. I know that the IVF centers need to pay attention to that because I know one IVF center, when we switched in California, they didn't become a provider. You got to have a contract with the insurance companies. I know, right? It's so much. We're just, sometimes in the US, we're just a little too much, right? But you do. So I worked for an insurance company, so I know this. Oh my gosh, this company called American Baby Company has secured 4 million in seed funding. It's a startup because they want to get a load of this, lower IVF. They want to make it $9,000, $8,995, including medication for people. I don't know how that's going to happen because the average cost of IVF in the US is over $23,000 and that medication isn't included. And it's around $5,000. It was $5,000 when I was doing IVF. So that's a lot, but they want to keep it under $9,000, including medication. I'm going to follow these people because it's amazing. So it's called, wait, let me get it, American Baby Company. And they have their own personal struggle with IVF. So they want to rethink fertility. And their goal is to help 250,000 families. Or wait, no, wait. They have a 10-year goal to help families have 250,000 babies per year. That's a big goal. So that would be amazing if that happened. So good for that. So we deal with surrogates all the time, and surrogates, as you know, typically, I tell you, I needed a surrogate, but they just get pregnant, have a baby. I mean, it's hard work, truly hard work. I mean, they're growing a human in their body, so I bat at anybody who's done that. But there was a major breakthrough because I'm sure some surrogates have carried for women who have that horrible morning sickness where you have to be hospitalized. Princess Kate had it done, but the USC has, they believe they found the gene. So that's amazing because if they found the gene, then they can work on getting, some kind of help for these women. And also, I know they're working also on preeclampsia, which I know surrogates do get. So they're definitely working on that as well too, to get a cure for that, to get relief from that. I know my surrogate had preeclampsia. She was fine. She delivered my children at a little, almost 38 weeks. So, but I love that they're really working on that and trying to find cures for things for pregnancy. Because a lot of times, let's face it, they were studying men, not women, and not pregnant women. So, yay for that, right? So, if they can get a cure, that would be lovely. Okay, so the European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology, we call them ESHRE, recently had their annual meeting in June. And they actually discovered with a study that there is kind of a cutoff. We used to think that, okay, if you used an egg donor and you were an older woman, yes, you can carry. I think in the United States, it's up to the age of 52, but now they're saying 49 years old. So 49 years old is the cutoff because then they really see a deterioration in the uterus. That kind of makes sense the older you get, right? But we didn't quite know the cutoff, and women older have carried. I did have a mom carry for her daughter, not once, but twice. So had that happen. She's 52, I think, the last time she carried. Um, but and I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But so this is 49, and what they are saying is the combination of getting your embryos tested, so that's PGTA, which we do a lot of in the United States, to test for chromosomal abnormalities can really help. Like if the woman is getting up to that age, then get some healthy embryos that are tested, and that will help her with a successful pregnancy, reduces the time it takes to achieve a live birth, reduces the risks, things like that, because we all want healthy pregnancies, right? And a healthy baby and a live birth. That's the goal, right? So, anyways, that's really great to know about that. Okay, smoke and IVF. Oh my gosh, the fires. Canada, it seems like every summer. And of course, there were horrible fires in France and Europe. I don't even know if they're still going on. But really, it doesn't take a lot of thought to think like, oh, smoke and IVF, probably not a good thing. But when you go through IVF, the embryos are, in a lab that's, what's called a clean room, right? So no matter what's going outside, what's in the lab is the same, right? The air is the same, everything's the same. They monitor it 24/7. But think about it this way. If you have your IVF, you're walking outside. If there's a major fire, you're walking outside, you're breathing in that awful smoke-filled, ash-filled air. You're, getting into your car, your car's got it. You're going into your house, you're walking outside. So they said if there's a lot of fire, just postpone your IVF, which makes sense, right? So I think that's a good tip. And I'm here for tips, shit too, right? So just wait, reschedule, right? Because when you have your child is when you have your child, right? Speaking of IVF, I've heard this my whole life because I did over 20 stimulated cycles. I know, right? Seriously. I did IUI first. I did a million of those. It seemed like, oh my gosh, those were such a hot mess because IUI is not as coordinated as IVF. IVF is very coordinated. You get a calendar, you have a schedule. Artificial insemination, IUI, is a little bit of like, oh, we don't know when you're going to be ready. Oh, can you come now? Oh, can you come over now? Can you come over, right? Oh, can you come over this afternoon? You're already there this morning. Can you come back this afternoon? You're like, I do have a life. Anyway, so I was always told that, there's cancer risk. And now they found out that the risk is so minimal that they're really not linking it to IVF. It was fewer than 20 additional cases. So that is wonderful for people who've gone through IVF. And actually, they found out that for ovarian cancer, the cancer is not in your ovaries, it's in your tubes. Who knew? Actually, people did know. There was a study years ago. They just didn't tell us. I don't have my tubes. I had an ectopic pregnancy, bilateral, meaning one in the right, one in the left, through IVF. Yes, they used to put more than one embryo, but there was no testing. The embryos were just 3 days old, so it was fine back then. We did not. I mean, there were more twins and everything, but not for me because obviously I needed a surrogate, right? So I didn't get pregnant with multiples except for that time in my tubes. So I don't have my tubes. So between there's no causal link and I don't have my tubes, I feel so much better. But it's good news for women who have gone through IVF. Okay, there's something here, not here actually, there's something called mitochondrial donation. They can't do it here in the United States. They mostly do it in the UK. But they talked about it at ESHRA because they haven't had too many babies born yet. They're hoping to expand it to Australia and other places where it is legal. But what they do is they take the mitochondria. So they use like my DNA, but I'm older, so maybe my eggs aren't so good. So they use mitochondria from a young, healthy egg, so somebody in their 20s, to help prevent diseases and help with, getting a healthy baby, right? So it was definitely very pioneering. I've heard about it for a long time. I've heard how much it helps prevent severe, incurable, inherited diseases, right? So good for that. There's only been 8 healthy babies born, so I don't think it's done a lot in the UK yet, but they're really, oh, that was a trial. They're really hoping to expand it because, if you've got some severe inheritable disease and that's going to help, why would you not want to use it, right? I just kind of thought this was adorable. Obviously, the Telegram founder, not obviously, but the Telegram founder, I guess the Russian government doesn't like him. I don't know why. I don't go too really deep in that. But so they've said that all the clinics need to stop, or the one clinic who has his sperm needs to stop um, selling his sperm, and they're just ignoring him. It's called Ultra Vita, I think. And it's refusing to stop offering his donated sperm. He is an interesting character because what he said is he's sort of like Elon Musk in that, oh, I'm brilliant, I'm a billionaire, I'm like in tech. I think the world should have my offspring. So he's actually said if you want to use his sperm, you have to use his sperm, he'll pay for your IVF or your treatment. So yeah, if I was the cryobank, I'd say, I'm going to keep it. So they're going to keep it. Let's see how that goes. It's Russia. Oof, that might be a little tricky, right? Canada actually has said that they're not going to ban sperm donors who are gay or bisexual. Okay. Before you freak out a little bit, the sperm is washed and clean and the men are tested, I think once and then 6 months later, but don't quote me on that. I don't run a cryobank. But I have been involved with parents who are HIV positive, and so many other people have, and there has been no recorded instance of anybody getting HIV from an embryo or from sperm. So keep that in mind. Again, it's washed, everybody's tested, but you can do that now in Canada. So just an FYI for that. So, for those men, want to donate to somebody else, that's great. All right, we've been hearing a lot about Mexico and surrogacy, and so there was a recent article about exploring the Mexico surrogacy and the framework. And right now, the judges and the courts and the different states are looking at keeping it as ethical and as supported as possible, which I love that. So please. We don't want any bad actors going in and messing it up because for people who cannot afford the United States, Mexico is definitely a viable option as long as you get with a really great clinic, a great agency, things like that. So, and actually, the criteria for surrogates for Mexico is stricter than the US. I mean, who knew, right? But they really want to keep it, the judges and everybody, they really want to keep it as ethical. They want to make sure that the surrogate is supported, that they don't get impoverished women, they're not exploited because that can happen. So hopefully it stays like it has been right now. So. And there's really good people that are trying to keep it that way. So, if you need advice on Mexico, I definitely do know people who are really good at Mexico and can really help for that. And then also, I do help a lot of people coming back to the U.S. with confirmatory adoptions. So I do that for them after they've had their baby because it's all about the babies. All right, Germany and IVF. Oh my gosh, Germany, seriously. I do love Germany. I've had a good time in Berlin. I've had a good time in Germany, but they are facing intense criticism for two reasons. Number one, they do have financial subsidies for fertility treatment, but it's only for married heterosexual people. So if you're single, you're not married, you're gay, lesbian, you don't get financial support. So they're getting a lot of grief for that, as they should. IVF is expensive. Germany, like all the countries, has less babies. They're very concerned. They want more babies. Well, then, if you're going to support the married boy-girl situation, why don't you support all your citizens with IVF who want IVF, right? Who want or fertility treatment, even just not IVF, right? Straight fertility treatment. That would be lovely. And then the other thing coming out of Germany is there was a conservative politician who is gay and he keeps voting against surrogacy in Germany, but he came over to the United States and had a baby. So, yes, people around the world, including myself, found that to be very hypocritical. And he's had to resign because he suffered intense backlash. Be honest. Why would you do? Of course, I know why you would do this. He likes his power. So what are you? Are you not conservative? What? Hmm? Anyways, so that's what's happening to him. You know, he just should have come out and said, right, that I'm doing a surrogacy. I voted before, but now that I've gone through this is what he should have done. Now that I've gone through the surrogacy process and I've seen it on the other side from America in the United States, and I have such a wonderful relationship with my surrogate and blah, 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 and all the people involved, I can see how it can be handled well. And we should do that here, or maybe at least just talk about it. That's what he should have said. But no, he tried to hide it. And of course, somebody found out. Maybe TMZ, who knows? Anyways, so he has resigned, as he should. And then in the UK, oh my gosh. So they granted a parental order. So in the UK, it doesn't matter. I get you a parental order, but it doesn't matter in here. If I get you one, it's not valid in the UK. So you have to go through the whole process again. I know, a pain, but it is what it is. That's what you have to do in the UK so that your child can be a UK citizen. And they're very strict, right? You have to be genetically connected to your child. So if you're single, you have to use your own genetics, right? If you're married or together, it's just the one partner. So this couple did a surrogacy in Minnesota, and there was this attorney who decided that he would like to create post-birth orders in this one county in Minnesota and an adoption process, post-birth orders. Such a pain because in any other county, you can do a pre-birth order. And then you do a pre-birth order and you write your name on the birth certificate, you get the bracelets with your baby, and that's it. But this one attorney had to do it this way. So in the UK, if you do a post-birth adoption, but you don't notify the UK that you're doing it, they think that you're child trafficking. They made an exception. They granted the parental order because they understood that they had to do it this way to leave the United States and come home. So, but it did trigger a potential criminal liability. So, hopefully that will get changed because really and truly, it should just be pre-birth like the rest of the state in Minnesota. And then Tara Lipinski, I have to say, she, if you don't know, she's the ice skater. She won an Olympic medal. She had a 5-year surrogacy and IVF journey. She documented it on Instagram as well as she had a podcast with her husband. She has a baby girl now. I know she was trying to have another child. I don't know if she's still trying, but her biggest regret was not going to surrogacy earlier. She felt like, and I get that because it took me 3 years. My doctor said, when I showed him, told him, because, if you'd listened to me earlier, you wouldn't have had to go through so much. And I said, I know, but I wouldn't have had these children. He goes, okay, fair enough. But it's a hard decision to make. You grow up thinking that you're going to be able to carry your own children. You have all the parts. You don't know that they're not going to work. And so I think that was for her. And as somebody, as an Olympic athlete, she just thought if she just worked extra hard, in her triple axel, if I worked extra hard, I could carry my baby. And that's not quite how it works. So she said that was her regret. So, but she has a beautiful little Georgie. So good for her. And she does maintain a close bond with her surrogate. Oh my gosh, I like to end on these kind of feel-good stories, especially since, oh my gosh, like that case with that poor man in China. I get why Florida is frustrated because, we've had some things, and that attorney is the same attorney who mishandled that poor intended father, or no, he's not intended, he is a father in Florida, the case I talked about earlier. The same attorney who handled that case handled the Mark surrogacy case. And she just needs to not be handling surrogacy cases, is all I have to say, because now he's got his children in California. He got scammed by somebody that he thought was taking care of his children and wasn't. And if he had had a better attorney, maybe a better agency, I don't know the agency involved, they would have been able to handle it. I have been involved in similar situations because, it's difficult to get into the United States, and you can handle it in a much, much, much better way where it's not in the news. Just saying. Anyways, there was a woman out of Australia who had identical quads. So one egg split 4 ways. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine? That is it's one out of every 15 million pregnancies. So extremely rare, delivered at 28 weeks. So kind of a long time for quads, I'm not gonna lie. So good for her. Okay. Speaking of a good story, there was a recent article about a woman, a grandmother who carried for her child. And like I said, I was involved in a case. The mother carried for her child not once, but twice. I remember the judge on the last one, he comes out, he goes, Counselor, do you know the age of the surrogate? I'm like, yes, that's the parent's mother. He's like, oh my gosh, because they didn't have the same last name. He's like, wow. I'm like, yeah, and this is her second time she's caring for her. He's like, oh, he was thrilled. I mean, it was such a beautiful story, such a beautiful story. And she was healthy enough to do it. So that was good. She had extra testing. Don't worry, the grandmother, the surrogate. But this woman, she watched her daughter suffer miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies. And so she welcomed a baby girl for her daughter. So loves it. And she says she's so close to her daughter and as well as her granddaughter. And then she did it again. So a second little girl. So just like my case. I'm not involved in this case, but I think it's a great story. My mom actually said she would have carried for me if she was younger. So thank you, Mommy. And then there was an egg donor who donated in her 20s for a French couple. And she has since actually reconnected with the couple. Her name is Stephanie Matto. You can read about her because I did. I think she was on the Today Show. And she has since become very close. She goes to France every year to see the parents and to see the baby girl that she's not such a baby girl anymore, to see the little girl that she helped bring. Well, her little contribution, the egg. And so she gets to meet this family and grow up with this family. She's like, oh my gosh, she said, it's so great to, see them every year, to see this girl. And then the girl spends 2 weeks with her so that she learns English and gets, stays connected because she is a U.S. citizen. Again, the couples did not come here for birth tourism. They came here because it's safe. And look at the beautiful story that they created. So it's wonderful. There was anonymous at first because back then, I think almost every egg donation was anonymous. It's since not anymore because there is no anonymity, as we all know, 23andMe and Ancestry.com. But they have like video calls, video chats, and they see each other once or twice a year. So wonderful. So love that family and, the gift that she gave to donate her eggs. She did it during college to make some money, as a lot of young women do. So they've got this lifelong family bond. All right, that is it. That's all I have from you. Thanks for joining. As always, I love doing this. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And if you want to see anything else, just let me know. Talk to you later.